All right, take two. Hi, everyone. Technical difficulties because apparently I am new to Facebook Live, so obviously I'm still learning this, so bear with me, everyone. Um, if you just tuned in, yay, you're not late. I'm super, super late. So, hi, everyone. I'm Nicole. Welcome to APL Readers Corner. This is week 2 of our book review discussion. I got Miss Tessie here, my floating head guest, and we will be talking about The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. Um, for those of you who don't know, our book discussion review happens once a week. We pick a book that is available right away on Hoopla, so both staff and patrons can read it right away. We pick, we kind of pick based on different genres, and we kind of look at reviews as well. We will be reviewing a book from a different genre each week until while the libraries are remaining closed to the public. So last week, Tessie had the live discussion of Wild Seed by Octavia Butler for our sci-fi fantasy genre. This week, we picked contemporary literature, which is why we picked The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. For those of you who don't know, who have never read contemporary literature, it is defined as a group of works produced from a specific time in history through this current age. They define the time in history as the 1940s, which is just after World War II, in postmodern literature, as they call it. So it's from then all the way to this current time. Some genres included in this can span from novels to poetry, short stories, plays, memoirs, and even autobiographies. Some of the common themes or characteristics of contemporary literature, they are reality-based stories with strong characters and a believable story. The setting is typically current or modern, so no futuristic or sci-fi works in this. The characters are well-defined, realistic, and highly developed. Something I thought was very interesting was that stories in this genre are more character driven rather than plot driven. And so you will have a modern narrative with a harsher reality. So like I said before, we read The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. The summary I came up with was, this is a story about the life of A.J. Fikry, a crotchety, curmudgeon, middle-aged man who owns a failing bookstore. One of his most prized Edgar Allan Poe works is stolen, and a mysterious package is left in his shop, which changes the course of his life. Gabrielle Zevin, she was a graduate of Harvard University. She currently lives in Los Angeles. She is a New York Times best-selling novelist of 9 novels. The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry is actually her 8th novel. It spent months on the New York Times bestseller list. It reached #1 on the National Indie Bestseller list and has been a bestseller all around the world. Her first debut was Margarettown, and it was selected from the Barnes & Noble Discover Great New Writers program. She has written book criticisms for the New York Times Book Review and NPR's All Things Considered. She has even wrote screenplays, which includes Conversations with Other Women, for which it was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award. So this book has gotten some great reviews. It was written in 2014. Overall, it's had about 4.5 out of 5 stars. One of the reviews I found was actually from Kirkus, and they said it was a likable literary love story about selling books and finding love. Zevin writes characters who grow and prosper in a narrative that is sometimes sentimental, sometimes funny, sometimes true to life, and always entertaining. So with that being said, I would love to hear what Tessie thought of the book.
Yeah, I did like the book, even though I know Nicole liked the book, and obviously a lot of people like the book. But first of all, the reasons that I don't like the book come from a bias that I don't like contemporary literature. It's not a genre that I like reading. I don't usually read it for fun. I would wish that I could say that I read this book and now I'm going to read a bunch of contemporary literature, but I'm just not. I think the main reason I don't like contemporary literature is that it is a reflection of modern day and things that people go through all the time, and I just don't want to read about things that I go through myself, so it's a personal preference.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the themes that we had talked about was that it has a modern narrative and there's some harsh realities. There's definitely some harsh realities in this book. Spoiler alert. Um, it was definitely not a book I would have picked for myself. I do like contemporary literature, but I do like part of what they call magical realism. So I still like a little bit of fantasy in with the modern era. Um, One of the reasons I actually picked this book was because it had me hooked in the summary. You know, a mysterious package and something got stolen from his bookstore. He owns a bookstore. We both love books. Um, I was drawn to that immediately because I wanted to be anywhere but my in the comfort of my own home. And so I was very pleasantly surprised with how the book went and what I thought of it overall. There was definitely, I felt it definitely fit some of those themes. I mean, the two biggest highly developed characters, in my opinion, were definitely the main character, AJ Fikry, but then also Detective Lambiase. Um, and I mean, having AJ, like I call him a curmudgeon, to go from that to over the course of his life kind of change not only his life, but Amelia's life and Maya's life, and then his bookstore presence overall. And then Detective Lambiase going from someone who admits he doesn't read to finding excuses to come in and visit AJ, to visit Maya, and pretty much read anything AJ throws at him, to eventually becoming a bookseller. So those two were probably the most highly developed characters. Do you think it fit some of those genre themes besides just the characters?
Oh, most definitely. I feel like anybody who likes contemporary literature will definitely like this book. The characters were very developed, and I did enjoy the fact that they changed as people depending on what was going in their life. And so AJ changed a lot by the end of the book. Lambiase changed a lot, and I think like even Amy changed a lot, and like you could see their development. Um, so I think it definitely fit. There was a lot of harsh realities of modern fiction getting thrown in there. Although personally, I felt like a lot of it they glossed over. So like it'd be like something bad happened in someone's life, and they would mention it and talk about it a little bit, but then they would keep going. So, which I guess is a reflection of real life. Like when bad things happen, like you kind of take it in, and then eventually life kind of keeps going, which isn't. I don't know, but
No,
yeah,
that's completely true. I mean, they definitely felt like, so one of the great things about Hoopla is that some of the books are offered audiobook and some are offered ebook. This happened to be both, so I was able to listen to it, which I enjoyed immensely. One of the things I noticed they kind of glossed over a lot was AJ's first wife. They mentioned Nick. You find out she does die in a car accident. But in the beginning, when he just mentions Nick, and you could tell, obviously, past tense, she's no longer around, but you're just wondering what's going on. Some of the other harsher reality, spoiler alerts, people. Maya's mother. Maya is the mysterious package. Who would have thunk? I would have liked a package. I don't know how I would have felt about a 2-year-old being left in my bookstore. I don't know why no one else was freaking out. I was freaking out. Maya's mother, she ends up killing herself. Daniel Parrish, the terrible, terrible, terrible man, but apparently great writer. He gets hit by a car. Ouch. And then finally, one of the saddest things, especially because he was so highly developed, AJ gets diagnosed with glioblastoma multiforme, which is a type of cancer that's found in the brain, and it makes speech difficult towards the end of his life.
Uh-huh.
That was harsh. They talked about that a little bit, and that was really harsh. For there's a lot of sadness in there, but what I loved about especially some of these characters is some of the little, quips. So like AJ, he starts out as a very finicky bookseller who he likes books, but he definitely has a niche. He doesn't like to go outside of his comfort zone. His comfort zone is short stories. He literally says, "I do not like anything over 400 pages or under 150 pages." So he's got like this little gap here that he only wants to read. He says, "I am repulsed by ghost-written novels by reality TV stars, celebrity picture books, sports memoirs, movie tie-in editions, novelty items, and I imagine this goes without saying, vampires." So he pretty much doesn't like anything we like. So we probably wouldn't get along if we went into his bookstore. He actually admits that he doesn't even like to sell anything popular because he doesn't feel like it's worth it to him, which
He
is
probably wouldn't even like he's in.
no, he would not like the book he is in because it is definitely yeah, it has some narrative that he probably wouldn't like. One of the things I thought was funny is he actually admits he doesn't like postmortem narratives, which he actually recommended The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak to an older patron who absolutely hated the book because, spoiler, it's narrated by death. And it's interesting that he would recommend a book he doesn't even himself enjoy. So that's definitely not the kind of bookseller I'm used to dealing with. Um,
Uh-huh.
but okay. Well, let's get into these awesome discussion questions that I actually found from Gabrielle Zevin's own website. She has some discussion questions for her own books, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, so let's do, all right. So the setting. So the
Uh-huh.
setting is Island Bookstore on Alice Island. Why do you think the author chose to set the book on an island, and how does it reflect AJ's character?
So personally, I think in the book they mention how hard it is to get to Ellis Island, like not over and over again, but often enough that it's meaningful. So I think that's a reflection of how AJ doesn't like to let people into his life, especially in the beginning. It was only after he got Maya that um, Ellis Island seemed like more of a community, because before then it was just like, oh, he's by himself, like his wife just died, like nobody can get onto the island and bother him. And then after he gets Maya, like he starts doing more things in his bookstore, and suddenly it seems like it's a little bit easier to get on and off the island. But I think the island is kind of a reflection of his personality, which is probably maybe why the author put the setting there.
Yeah, actually, yeah, no, I like that a lot. While you were talking about like how it's so hard for people to get in and almost kind of makes you think that he himself is the island and it's hard for people to get close to him. So once he finally lets Maya in, I know, very philosophical. Once he lets Maya into his life, he starts letting other people into his life. He starts being a better brother-in-law to Ismay. He starts um, developing a really tight friendship with Detective Lambiase. I mean, he confides in him about a lot of things. He even was the first one to confide in about his diagnosis. So considering where he was in the beginning, that speaks volumes to his character. So yeah, definitely that island probably is a reflection of himself. And through the course of his life, he started letting people in, making it easier for people to kind of get kind of just, you know,
A little closer.
a little closer, all the feelsies. So Lambiase, he's actually my second favorite. AJ is my first, but he moves from an occasional or non-reader to a reader to a bookseller. How do you think becoming a reader changes him? Consider the scene where he decides not to confront Ismay about the backpack. For those of you who don't know, the backpack, Maya's backpack actually had A.J. Fikry's most prized possession, Tamerlane, which is a collected works of Edgar Allan Poe, In the kid's backpack, we all thought it was lost. Crazy. Do you think his reaction is different than it would have been if he hadn't taken up reading?
The thing that I did like about the book was that the book liked books so much, if that makes sense. Because everybody's reading books, they were quoting from books, they were like, these books changed my life, which books do. Yeah. And I think that is in the process of reading more, and like it makes you more empathetic. So I think that it broadened his mind a little bit outside of just being a cop. And like I think later on he says that he attributes it to being older, and he's like, oh, like I realize that people always have a reason for the things that they do, which I think is a realization that you get when you read a lot, is because you get to be in the mind of a lot of different kind of people. So he grew more empathetic, I think. So he definitely would have acted different if he hadn't been a reader, I think.
Yeah, well, and even Ismay, while he does finally confront Ismay about the backpack, she even says, you are not a cop. You're not the kind of cop I would expect. So obviously, yeah, when you read from different people's perspectives, you start to get into the mindset of other people other than your own. So yeah, I definitely think maybe once he started reading more and he saw Tamerlan in the backpack, he was like, whoa, let's step back for a second. Let's not overreact. Let's think about why this is here and what are the repercussions for it. Where some people, I wouldn't know, I'm not a non-reader, but some people might just jump the gun and overreact and immediately confront them, not understanding the why or even wanting to know the why behind of what their actions are saying. So yeah, he definitely, becoming a reader changes him, but like you said, becoming a reader changes a lot of people. So that's definitely true. This one, I like this question. So once AJ Fikry starts letting people into his life, he finally agrees to have a book author or a book event. So the author Leon Friedman, who wrote The Late Homecomer, right? Is that what it's called? Late Home. Yes, you're right. I think you're right. Well, it was a book AJ and Amelia bonded on. So much so that it started their whole relationship. So, I mean, that's a pretty big thing. So to have the author come give a book talk, maybe sign some copies and everything, that's a big step for AJ, and obviously for Amelia. But when did you become aware that Leon Friedman is not who he says he is? How soon did you pick that up?
Like immediately.
Yeah, I mean, right away, AJ is describing this author, does not look like his author picture. Looks like a mall Santa, and which is, yeah. And he gives very vague, short answers to any of the patrons that came in to attend this event. So it was definitely, the whole time I'm like, this can't be him. This can't be him. And then you find out Lenora Ferris, aka Leon Friedman, is the actual author, and she just hired this man to be her stand-in. What did you make of her reasons for hiring this imposter?
I thought, like, while I was reading this book, they were talking a lot about, also as a writer, like how that reflects in the books that are written. Like they would talk about some writers and how things they've experienced are in the book. And while I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, I was like, there's probably a lot of the author, Gabrielle Zevin, in this book. And I wasn't surprised to learn that she had been to Harvard University. Like I think AJ had been to Harvard, and like I wasn't surprised by her bio, and I was like, yeah, I get that kind of author writing this kind of book. But as far as Lenora, what was her last name? I forgot.
Ferris.
But Ferris, yeah, her reasons like, I didn't judge her for them. Like, I figured I was just like, okay, if you want to pretend that you're a different person writing a book, which happens all the time, um, I was fine with it. I wasn't that bothered. I was just amused by the fact that she hired a mall Santa to play her, so I was like, you could have at least hired someone a little bit better.
Yeah,
She
a little more
obviously
intellectual that probably would have read her book. Well, yeah, I mean, in a lot of authors, especially females, they have a hard time getting their books published. Some of them have to abbreviate their names. You see that a lot in books. There are even some female authors that take a male persona. J.K. Rowling, Robert Galbraith. That's how she was able to get into adult mystery series. So I'm sure I get it. It definitely sucks, and she wanted to get her name out there, but she had to do it through a different way. I just wish maybe she would have, especially how long it's been. I wish maybe she would have maybe came, sat up and said, okay, you know what, guys, let me tell you a secret. This is me. I wrote this book, and then because some of those people really enjoyed her work, and they would have loved to hear her perspective and her answers to the questions that the Santa, kind of didn't answer. So, but you know what? I'm not an author, so I, like we said, no judgment, and that's how she did it, and that's totally fine. Um, this question I thought was interesting, and this is probably one we can end with. What do you think the future holds for physical books and bookstores? Now, remember, this was written in 2014. And obviously, AJ, you saw him freaking out about ebooks. Freaking out. So we both work in libraries. So what do you think the future holds for physical books and bookstores?
I think that we're still going to have bookstores, if maybe not the massive ones, because those have been going away slowly. Like I remember Borders, like that one's gone. Mm-hmm. There's still Barnes and Nobles, although a lot of their stock is not books anymore, which I think is just their way of still keeping, like still being able to have their profit margin, which is selling a lot. But I think people still appreciate physical books, even if they don't have as many of them, because ebooks are convenient. Like you still read a lot, but you just have it in a format that is more, like you can take it around with you. Where knowing from personal experience, having a lot of books is really hard to move around with, live with. They take up a lot of space, but I still enjoy reading, and I still like getting books. So I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think people need stories. It's just the way they're accessing them is going to be different, which is perfectly fine, as long as we can provide that access as libraries and as bookstores and as writers. I think they're still going to be around. So I think AJ, when he was freaking out about ebooks and how it was going to destroy everything, I think it was a little bit excessive, like maybe a lot excessive, because he was really adamant about it. And I think that small bookstores, like they've never needed as much or had to have as much traffic as the large bookstores. So as long as people are still buying some physical copies, which I feel like people will, I think hopefully they'll be fine. I'm not a bookseller. I learned a good amount about bookselling with this book, which I thought that was interesting. But hopefully my predictions are right and that it's not dismal.
No, I think you're definitely right.
In the future.
No, I think what's happening is it's evolved over the years. I had taken a class in my master's where we talked about the evolution of books, how they started as clay tablets and they, progressed on from there. So there'll always be a need to record stories. It's just the format is going to be a little different. But we also know a lot of people that still prefer physical, tangible materials. I love the feel of a book. I love the smell. I love having an e-reader because I can take it on a plane and I can have all my books at my fingertips. But at the same time, if I'm at home, I love the feel of the paper. I love the feel of the actual book itself. So I used to work at Barnes and Noble, and I you still have all those avid readers that still prefer the physical books. But like you said, Barnes and Noble and other bookstores have changed their inventory. They've adapted, they've added other things. But for the most part, books are still available. We are just giving them, we're just giving people different ways to access them, just like you said. So I like that. Um, well, okay. Thank you all for joining my first ever Facebook Live discussion. Apologize for the technical difficulties. We will get better at this, I promise you. If I have to continue to stay at home, I will get better at this. So tune in for Monday's story time. The theme is birds. It's at 10 a.m. We have a different librarian doing a story time each time, and it's awesome. They've been doing great at it. Check out this book if you haven't. If you're wondering what's going on next week, week 3, we have Murder Mystery Thriller, and we are going to be reading If She Knew by Blake Pierce. Me and a fellow coworker, Jordan, will be doing the live discussion, so I hope you all enjoyed. You guys have a great weekend. Thank you, Tessie, for being my floating head guest. As always, she's amazing. And stay safe, everyone. Thank you. Ah.